So we're gonna begin in a second. Okay. Let's get that. Got people coming on. We got about 10 right now. I hope all those who are on the call today have had a good can you hear? Hey Trey, back and forth. I like it. Very good. I think most of you were here last week. I'm glad to have you back. We're going to get started in a second. For those that are new, we'll kind of go over kind of the ground rules for how we're doing things. But anyone would like to share how their week has gone, please, you can unmute yourself and share. You want to pop in? How about Aaron?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my week has gone relatively well. Let's see.
What have you been up to?
Well, yesterday I think went to go visit my grandparents, and I know we had to fix someone's internet yesterday.
Okay. Very good. Anyone else want to share something they've done unique in the last week or so?
Hey guys.
Hey Blake.
Hey, how you doing, Blake?
What's up?
How are things in Blake's world?
Nothing really. I haven't really been doing anything. Just chilling at home.
Has it been challenging not being able to play baseball?
Yeah.
I know that's something you really enjoy doing, so that's probably been hard.
Yeah, it sucks.
What have you been having to do a bunch of errands around the house for your parents, or they keep?
Yeah, yard work and stuff. Yeah.
I understand. My nephew.
Keep busy.
Yeah, my nephew goes to Forest High School. I had him over 2 weeks ago to move dirt and put in flower beds. So try to keep him busy.
I've been doing too.
Yep. Anyone else want to share what's going on with them right now?
Oh, is that Trey? What's up, Trey?
We've got Erica, are you ready to go?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Well, I wanted to, for those, I think most people were on it last week. I think Blake might be someone that was newer to the call, but we're excited to kind of keep moving with this. And today's topic is on kind of financial literacy and teaching students about credit. So credit, it really can encompass a lot of different things, but we're going to kind of go over the basics today. Before we get started, what I'll do is I'll just kind of go over our goal for the webinar. Hopefully mute all of you except for myself and Aaron during the presentation. This should last around 45 minutes or less, this webinar. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to ask questions. You can do that. Basically, the best way to probably do that is when you're muted, if you want to either raise your hand, which I can show you how to do that in a second, but you also can type in the comment section how to ask a question. So let me, before we kind of get going, I pass over to Erica. I'm going to share my screen for a second, the meeting window for those who are new to the platform. The bottom area here, this is the, if you're muted, it would basically show red. If you want to have your camera on, this is where you would turn it on. If you want it off, that's fine. This right here is the participant area, so you can see who's on the call. And this is the actual chat. So you can actually chat. The way this is set up, for the most part, the chat is really between you guys and Erica. So, like, for example, you want to ask a question, you can say, what is credit? And it will populate. So use that feature. Now, above the each name here, you see my mouse. Mine does not show it, but you should have a little hand little icon. If you want to raise your hand, that's the way you can raise your hand. If you want to ask a question, or you can actually just type it in the chat. The last webinar we did, you guys used the chat feature very well. I would encourage you that if you want to unmute the question, you're welcome to do that. We don't have a problem with that because I do want to have interaction with you guys besides just the chat feature. So based off that, Aaron and Blake kind of introduced themselves. I'm going to kind of go down the roll here, and for Erica Pittman is a vice president at Fidelity Bank right here in downtown Wake Forest. So she's a UNC Tar Heel. Did you get my random text yesterday?
Yeah. Anyway.
We went to school together. We don't even realize it. We were at school
Yeah,
at the same time.
I know. It's so funny.
So we were both at UNC.
Big school anyway.
It is. Anyway, we have many students here. Most of them are in our Career Readiness Academy based on what I see here. But we had Aaron say hello. Alpha, you want to say hello?
Hi.
Where do you go to school, Alpha?
I go to Roosevelt High School.
Okay. We already heard from you. Blake, what school do you go to, Blake?
What happened?
What school do you go to, Blake?
I got a Heritage.
Okay. Elizabeth, you want to pop on and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Reese, and I'm homeschooled.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Grant. Unmute yourself. Yep.
Hello, I'm Grant Harris, and I go to Wakefield High.
Okay. Justin, you want to introduce yourself?
His mic is broke.
Okay. Got it. Sorry. Thank you. Yep. Kaylin. From Wakefield, you want to introduce? Okay. Midori.
Hi, I'm Midori and I go to Roseville.
Okay. Kenna.
I'm McKenna and I go to Wakefield.
Okay. Trey.
Hi, I'm Trey and I go to Heritage.
Okay. And Tyler.
Hey, I'm Tyler. I go to Heritage also.
Okay. I'm going to meet everybody now, and we will kind of start. So, Erica, tell us a little bit about yourself. For Erica, I got to unmute you. Sorry. There. Erica, tell us a little about yourself.
I was like, you can't. I'm Erica Pittman. I work for Fidelity Bank. I've been in banking for over 15 years. Right now, I do a lot with business lending, but have just done all different sorts of lending throughout the years.
Very cool. So you've been working with Fidelity for about a year now. Is that correct?
For about a year.
And you were with BB&T for a long
15
time.
years.
15 years. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Erica, I'm going to pass it over to you, and
Okay.
I'll kind of so. When we're going through this, guys, again, you might want to take some notes. Again, if you have questions as we go, you're welcome to ask them. We definitely want to make this very interactive, so please do that. So I'll pass it over to Erica.
All right. Okay, we're going to talk today about personal finance, and really we're going to have a focus on credit. And none of you right now have a credit file because you're too young. So it's a really good program here for you to have because it's going to set you up for when you are 18 or older and can start to establish credit. Just some really good, useful tools of, starting credit and maintaining good credit. So that's kind of the overview of it. As we go along, if you guys have questions, want clarification on something, just type in the chat and we'll definitely have some interaction if you want. Because I'm kind of learning how to do these Zoom classes or WebEx classes as we go along. Very different from the classroom setting, obviously. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay. Credit 101.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, sorry. There.
No, you're fine. So what is credit? So the basic definition, it's going to let you buy goods or services before you actually pay for them because you've proven that you can be trusted to repay them in the future. So when I bought my house, I did not have all the money up front to pay for my house. So I got a loan that allowed me to buy the house, and now I repay the bank. So that's essentially when you think about it. But I mean, even credit cards, as small as using the credit card to pay for something now, and then you're going to repay it later. Having good credit's important because it's used by lenders to decide to give you any type of loan, from houses and cars, credit cards, even cell phone contracts. They check your credit. Renting an apartment, getting a job. When I got my job, they had to check my credit to make sure, because I am a lender, I'm doing loans. They want to make sure that not only do I have the knowledge to give to clients, but also that I'm kind of practicing what I preach. So your credit is checked in a variety of different ways.
And I'll just share from my personal experience. The first time I ever started developing credit was when I was in college, and Erica probably could share a lot of times credit card companies would come to you in college and say, "Hey, you want a free T-shirt? Fill out this application."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
It's illegal now.
What, is that illegal now?
It is.
Yeah. Well, that's how I got my first credit card. Was that? Ironically, I waited to my senior year to do it. So it didn't happen until I was around 21, and I made a lot of the mistakes most people make with credit cards. So maybe we'll hit that a little bit later. But I got that credit card and looked at it more as free money than what it really is.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about credit cards, my advice is whenever I've had like conversations with college age kids, their parents will bring them in and have conversations. They want me to kind of guide them from the credit perspective. Really thinking about like, how much really of a credit card limit do you need? Like, how much do you think that if you got in trouble and you had your credit card maxed out to the limit, what is going to how much can you pay back easily? Because if you're 20 years old and in college, a $5,000 credit card, if you don't have any more than like a 10-hour-a-week job or something, like $5,000 is going to be pretty hard to pay back. But maybe $500 makes more sense. Like, maybe you can't pay it back all at once, but it's not going to be a large payment that you're going to have to make each month. So the credit is basically repaying what you borrow in a timely manner. So, pros and cons of credit. The pros, you can buy the items that you need now. And so you don't have to carry cash. You're gonna have a record of the purchases. And I mean, you can have all your bills consolidated into one payment in theory. Cons, interest. So if you're borrowing money, you're gonna have to pay that money back plus interest. And we're gonna look at a little bit later how interest really kind of, like, we're gonna look at like scenarios, and you guys are gonna do it to how interest works. So I've got a question from Tyler. When you start using credit, do you start with high credit, low credit, or neutral? You start with nothing. So many times when you first start using credit, there's two options really. There's some banks that will do credit cards, and they may give you $500 limit, and that's it. And that's to help you establish credit because you have no credit. A lot of times people may use parents or family members or someone that they know that has good credit that can vouch for them, which is called cosigner. So they may have somebody cosign for credit. And they're essentially vouching that says, if this person doesn't pay you back, I'm going to take it over. So it's a large responsibility to be a cosigner as well. So with interest, higher cost of items because you're paying more. You're paying a percentage on top of what you borrow. You might have additional fees. A lot of times when you get a mortgage, you're going to have to pay an origination fee. You've got to pay the people who are doing the loan for you. Financial difficulties may arise if you lose track of how much they've spent each month. So if you borrow, And you may just have too many loans out there. That's going to make it difficult to keep track of. And increase impulse buying. So if you've got these large credit cards and you've got several of them, like you have to be diligent to realize, okay, I've got a $20,000 credit card line. That doesn't mean to just go out there and buy these new shoes because it's fine, I'll pay them back eventually. It can lead to impulse buying. You may just say, oh, I'll get it. I'll pay for it. It'll be fine.
I can just again, I know we're going to talk about credit, not just on the credit card side, but I think for teenagers right now, credit cards is probably one of the top things they would think about with credit. And again, I think we're all examples, but I'm a great example of some of the mistakes I made early on. I mean, that first credit card was $1,000 balance. So you're like, okay, $1,000. Well, it turned into $3,000 balance. So it gave me once I started using it, they started giving me a little bit more of a limit, and I ended up probably paying not $3,000 back over time, probably close to $10,000 with interest, and I got stuck where I didn't. I made a lot of mistakes, like a lot of people do. So I part of why we are covering this is to realize credit is very a part of your life. You have to have it, but it's easy to make mistakes with it too. So.
Well, question for you, Corey, because you have made mistakes. Did you ever have any kind of classes like this? Did you have any kind of guidance on that?
No. I mean, parents
I
would
think
say
that's key.
Yeah.
That's what's so great about this, like a class like this. I mean, my dad really drilled. So my first credit card I got, I actually walked into the bank and applied for it. Because and so they approved me what I qualified for, which was good because I had just this fear put into me about how important credit was. So credit can open a lot of doors for you. It can also it can put a strain on you.
Yeah. Like I said, on the interest side and realizing when you're maxed out and I had credit. I mean, again, it wasn't like it was like $100,000. We're talking probably a $5,000 debt, but I ended up spending more than $5,000 to pay back. I probably spent close to $10,000.
That's the thing is, if you're in college, $5,000 can feel like $100,000.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all kind of relative in life.
Yes.
Isaiah has no volume.
Okay, got it. I'm not saying, is he just texting you? I'm not seeing it on the chat.
No, I see it on the chat.
Oh, okay, got it.
Next slide.
You got see Dawn's chat too? Yeah, Dawn Beester, one of our teachers. That's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was mentioned actually, Dawn. Corey mentioned that he got trapped. I believe that it's now illegal for credit card companies to come on campuses. So, I mean, that's a good least. You can't a T-shirt and a credit card.
that was a T-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. You could just get whatever. So why is credit so important? So FICO, which is Fair Isaac Corporation, ranges from a 300 to a 850. So 300 being the worst, 850 being the best. Your credit score summarizes your financial history numerically. It takes into account the type of debt you hold, the payment history, credit history, like how long you've had credit, types of credit, and the number of applications that are made. So how many times you try to apply for different loans. Specific activities such as applying for numerous credit within a short period can affect your score negatively. Which an example of that is when you go to buy a car and you're getting a loan there at the car dealership. They're sale and they're looking to make sure that they get you the best deal, because if they can get you a really good loan, then you're going to buy the car from them. But what's happening is they work with several different lenders, and your credit score can be checked numerous times in that one location. And that's okay if you have good credit, you have a long payment history. It can impact your credit score if you've got newer credit. The lower your credit score, the harder it becomes for certain services, since a poor credit score affects your purchasing power. I mean, if your credit score is so low, you can't get a loan. When it comes to loan application, especially mortgage, your score will determine whether you get a high interest loan or a low interest loan. The higher the score, it can save you thousands throughout the life of the mortgage. And we've got some really cool examples of that. That's going to be coming up. That you'll be able to see like truly the savings that you could get from having a score in the 800s versus a score in the 600s. Even a score like in the low 700s. I mean, there's differences. So.
You just had a good question from Alpha, Erica. Do you see this?
Do you have to use all the money in the credit card, or can you use it for small purchases and pay it back? Yeah, you can just use it. So I used to give advice to people when they were starting to establish credit, and they're showing the repayment. That's what your credit is based on, is the repayment. So I would tell people, here's a credit card. You have survived so far in life without this credit card. It should be used for emergencies, like if you need to get new tires or your car breaks down or something like that. However, you do have to use it to generate that history. So I would always tell somebody, like, at least once or twice a month, use your card to buy your McDonald's lunch, and then pay it back at the, when that bill comes. Like, don't accrue interest. But what it's going to show is that repayment history. So you can just use $5 on that credit card and then pay it back, and then you're going to generate a credit history that way. And especially if you're starting out, and if you've got a small card that you're using for emergencies, you should use it, but really don't use too much of it and just repay it back as quick as possible. Because if you're 19 years old, 20 years old, if you're in college and maybe not working full time, you have limited funds coming in, so you don't want to extend yourself to the point that you've got to work so much to pay off your credit card bill and can't focus on school.
Next slide.
Yep. So we talked about credit score range. So we see poor obviously is 300 all the way up to exceptional at the 850. I think this arrow right here just kind of says where the average is.
Yes.
For most people. So between kind of in that, I guess, 740 range.
And I can just tell you guys from my experience, when I created that kind of mistake in my early life, my credit was in the low 600s, and it's worked its way up, and now I'm close to exceptional. That's not trying to brag. I'm just saying it took me time to build it back up.
You're not trying to brag, but that's exceptional.
No, I'm not. No. When you get married and you are on loans with your wife who had perfect credit, it helps you too. That's another story. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Next slide. We're gonna show a video right now that talks a bit about how to build your credit, different ways to do that. So we're gonna try this out. We did it the last webinar, see if it works. But just give me 1 second. I can. Okay. Populates. It's not what I'm looking for. Get off this. You guys see the video here? Yes? You can see it, Erica?
Yeah.
I can, yeah.
Credit history, right? So what do you do?
We started over.
How do I build credit from scratch? Building your credit for the first time can feel a little like the chicken and the egg. To build a good credit score, you're going to need to take out a loan or get a credit card. But you can't qualify for a loan or get a credit card without some credit history, right? So what do you do? Let's start with a bank account. You don't really need a long credit history to open a checking account at your local bank. In fact, you may have one already. Even though a checking account won't necessarily help you build credit history with the bureaus, that account may help you get your first credit card or loan from the same provider. You see, if you already have a history of doing good business with the bank, they know you and value that business. That existing relationship could carry some weight when it comes time to get your first line of credit. That is a good first step, but if that's still not enough, here are a few other things to consider. Some banks offer credit cards for folks who want to establish, strengthen, or even rebuild their credit. It's called a secured credit card because you secure the amount you borrow with a security deposit. In other words, you provide collateral by depositing money in an account with the bank, something the lender gets to apply a portion of, or all, should you default on the loan. Your credit line is equal to the amount you deposit. You won't be able to touch that money or use it to pay off your balance, and you'll still have to prove to the bank that you have sufficient income to pay the credit card. The good news is that the bank will be more confident that you'll pay them back, even without great credit, allowing you to build or rebuild your credit. Since you'll be using your first card to build your credit, you want to make sure that, once active, your lender will report all those on-time payments to the bureaus before you apply. Most banks and credit unions do this, but some retail store cards, for example, don't. So make sure to check ahead of time, and if your payment history won't be reported by the card issuer, you may want to keep shopping for a card. Also, don't apply for a bunch of different cards if you keep striking out. All those hard inquiries and declines aren't going to help you build a score. Keep in mind, a secured card is different from a prepaid card. A prepaid card allows you to load the card with a cash amount ahead of time to spend later. Prepaid cards are great for people who need a Visa or MasterCard to make a purchase, and can be a terrific gift idea. But they won't help establish credit. Another way to build credit is to see if there's someone who might be willing to co-sign a loan with you. This can be any adult who is credit-worthy, including your parents or spouse. When someone co-signs a loan, you get the benefit of their good credit history, and this may help you get approved. You can then build your own credit with a good history of payment on the co-signed account. Now, whoever co-signs the loan for you is taking on a really big financial responsibility. They'll be on the hook for the debt if you run into trouble, so it's not something you should ask for lightly. When you do get credit extended to you, it's important to keep managing it carefully, even after you've built a history. You're doing the right thing by getting off on the right foot. Now make sure you keep those good habits the rest of your credit life. This will help you build a long, positive credit history that will eventually result in a really good credit score.
Okay. Switch gears back to where we're at. Did you want to comment at all on that, Erica?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of picks up on a couple of things. And one of to me, the key things about credit is not to bite off more than you can chew. Not to, when they were talking about earlier, like it tends to you tend to want to use this purchasing power because you want those new shoes or whatever, but that can really add up. So really just kind of understanding your budget, understanding your paycheck and on all of that, to make sure that you're staying kind of living within your means. And I think it really kind of said that in the little video. And we're going to see a lot of that in just a second about just really understanding the difference that a $15,000 car versus like a $25,000 car can make.
Yep. We have a question from Alpha. Do you see this in the chat right here?
Okay. What's the difference between low interest?
Maybe he meant no interest. I don't know.
interest and low interest. When you use the credit card, how long do you have until they put interest on the payment? Depends on the credit card. So there's so many different options out there. There are low interest loans. There are no interest. So there's credit card deals out there. The one thing that they all have in common is kind of preferred terms are only going to be given to somebody with good credit. So we know Corey has exceptional credit. He's exceptional. And so Corey would be one of those that they'd want to give this credit card to, where it may say 12 months no interest, which is awesome. And so that's kind of the difference. It's not, I don't know, like, is the correct term, but it's just there's different cards out there that are going to offer different terms because they want to entice people to use their card. So maybe you get 12 months no interest, or maybe you get rewards points, or maybe you get whatever.
And also, Erica, explain, like, when you make a charge, they're going to send you a bill and say, this is the minimum payment. If you only pay the minimum payment, you're going to be charged interest on whatever you charge. So you want to kind of
explain. You're just getting charged like a minimum payment. Yeah, exactly. Anything you pay up, and so that's not necessarily always going to cover much more than the interest owed. So you're just going to continue to have that outstanding balance, and you're just, that pair of shoes or the 10 pairs of shoes that you bought is now going to take you, I mean, it could take you 5 years to pay off. At that point, you don't have those shoes anymore. So, you know, what is it that you're buying, and how long do you think you're going to have that item that you're willing to pay that off for that long? A car, yeah, I'm willing to take 5 years to pay off a car because I'm going to have that car for five years from now. Shoes, not really. So that's important to kind of consider when you're putting things on credit.
And the other thing, so if I was to make a purchase right today on my credit card, and I get a bill in a month, as long as I paid off that purchase before pay my whole amount off, I wouldn't be charged interest during that time period, right? Is that, I mean, it's kind of a gray area, but for the most part.
Cards, most of the time, you can pay the card off monthly and not be charged interest. Whereas, like, you're accruing interest daily for a mortgage or a car loan.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to maybe answer that question Alpha has is, if you charge something on a credit card and you paid it off before it was, you know, basically it was all due that month, you would not be charged any interest.
Yeah, and so a lot of people, like myself, will use a credit card to pay bills and then pay it off at the end of the month because I'm going to accrue rewards points. So like I get cash back. And so I'm actually earning money by doing that as opposed to just writing a check for it or, you know, putting it on my debit card. So, I mean, that takes quite a bit of discipline. I always tell that to people. You have to have quite a bit of discipline and know that you're going to budget yourself so that you're going to pay that off at the end of the month. Because otherwise, do you really want to put your utilities or whatever? I mean, I guess you want to keep your utilities on, so it's always a nice backup if you need it. But you don't want to have to take months and months and months to pay, you know. I don't want to pay off my January water bill in December because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I was just posting that link that we're going to use in a second. So, okay, you want to jump back into the PowerPoint?
Yeah. I mean, are we ready?
Yep.
So, how many of you guys like to buy the Lamborghini as opposed to Civic, right? Wouldn't we all?
Raise the hand.
So I think what we want to do, I want y'all to look at this. So we've got an example here. We used Maria is her name, and she bought this Honda Accord for $15,000. The loan amount. Is he going to?
I'm just pulling up the actual.
It just disappeared.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
You see it okay?
Yep. So if you see the link that Corey sent in the chat, click on it because you can kind of follow along with the savings calculator. So that's why I got these rates.
Yep.
So you'll see, like if you go in and you say, hey, we're going to do a 60-month or a 5-year auto loan in North Carolina for $15,000, and my credit score is between a 720 and 850. So let's calculate what the difference in the payment would be. Well, it's going to tell you all the ranges for the different FICO scores. So you see all of these brand new, like you can get like 1.99%. That's typically going to be for a new car. So we're dealing with a used car here. So 4.162 would be kind of a default interest rate for somebody with good credit. For a credit score of 660 to 689, you're going to go up almost about 3.5%. And then for somebody with a 590 to a 619, I mean, that goes up to 15%. So when you look at it, if your score goes from, say, an 800 to a 600, you could end up paying an extra, almost $5,000 extra for the life of that loan. So over the 5 years. So you go from a $15,000 car to a $20,000 car. And most people know that cars lose their value, right? So you could end up being upside down in that car loan. But I mean, it's a huge difference there of what your interest rate could be. Even down from, if you was down to like a 660, you could still pay an extra $1,400 for that vehicle.
One thing I want to share too, because people understand, the loan amount is what the cost for the car. The interest is the additional amount you pay. Basically, that's the amount you're paying to be able to borrow that money. So you're not paying $15,000 for that car. You're paying $18,000 for if you have a credit in the 660 range. If you have low credit, you're now paying $21,000. You can kind of see the difference where the credit score is very valuable to these types of purchases, and the interest that is charged based off of it.
And if you think about it, like it's 2020. So is that Honda 2015 Honda Accord worth $20,000 now? $21,000? It did not appreciate in value. Hondas are good and they'll last a long time. But look at the difference in the monthly payment.
Yep.
So the total cost of the loan it makes a huge difference.
You want to go to the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
This is the Explorer. And
This is the Explorer. Worth $40,000. He's got a newer Explorer. We're still dealing with the same rates, but look at the difference in the total interest paid. Because obviously we're going up in the loan amount. I mean, there's a $13,000 difference in how much you're gonna pay over the life of the loan. So that's kind of crazy. That Explorer is going to cost $13,000 more for someone whose credit's not as good.
And the truth is, most likely in the scenario where you're 590 to 619, it might be hard for if a car dealer would actually loan to, or a bank would actually loan to you. Am I correct in that, Erica? Would that loan even really happen?
No, I mean, the dealership might, but that interest rate is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Because interest rates, so not to get too technical, but interest rates are higher based on risk. So your credit report is kind of the indicator of risk, of how risky you are as a person. So your credit report shows what kind of credit you have. It shows how well you pay, if you're paying on time, if you're using your credit cards properly and not maxing them out. It's the indicator of your risk. So you pay for risk. You want somebody to take a chance on you, but your credit score is a 590. Okay, well, maybe they are, but you're going to have to pay a little extra for them to do that, because there's a chance, based on what they see on your credit report, that you might not pay them back, or you might not pay them on time. That's why there's such a difference in the scores or the interest rates.
You guys want to see the Lamborghini?
So that was pretty big. That's a pretty big difference. And I googled these costs. So $265,000 is basically a house. So maybe you want to live in your Lamborghini. But there's an $88,000 difference in interest paid from a 720 to a 590. So if you think about, I didn't even add it up. I mean, you're going to pay $382,000 for that car.
With the low credit score.
With a low credit score, yep.
We'll quickly jump to the housing part too, and then we'll have you guys do the exercise. We're on time. We can probably go about 10 more minutes. So I'll pass it over to you.
Yep. So same thing, kind of going through, you just see your bigger numbers. So, you've got a townhome, a house, and then like a mansion, basically. And just be able to kind of see what the numbers look like. Most of the time, you're going to see houses, 30-year loans or 20-year, 15-year. Cars are usually going to be 5-6 years because cars depreciate in value. So you don't want to be upside down if you sold the car. So $250,000 townhome. I mean, look at the difference in the rates. If you've got a great credit score, right now 2.9 is a potential mortgage rate. And over 30 years, you'll pay $127,000 in interest. Whereas if you have a 620, it's $207,000. So that's quite a bit of a difference. I'm trying to calculate here. I want to look at it. That's let's say. That is an $80,000 difference. Anything below a 20, there's a chance you might not even get approved for the mortgage. And if you do, it's special programs and all of that. So you're going to pay a lot of extra closing costs. You're going to pay a lot of a higher interest rate. But most mortgage programs kind of cap out at a 620.
For the next one, the $450,000.
So just a regular house. I mean, look at the difference that it goes to. $125,000 difference in interest that it's going to cost to be from a 760 to a 620.
Finally, the mansion.
Look at the payment. Big difference.
Finally, the mansion.
Something to think about, your credit score, because when you are getting a mortgage, they're going to pre-approve you based on your income and based on your credit. And so if you're getting approved for how much you can afford on a loan payment, obviously a lower interest rate is going to let you get approved for a higher loan. And so your credit score is going to determine how much of a mortgage you can get. And it could determine if you get your number one choice in a house or not.
Definitely. I will say, well, the monthly payment, I think I must have put it in wrong because that I don't. It's got more than, yeah, but the interest is right. We could look it up real quickly.
Yeah, I got it right here. So a payment for monthly payment would be like $4,100 for a 760 versus 5,100 for 620. And the interest is going to be, I mean, you pay extra $300,000 in interest, $321,000 in interest.
Yep.
So that's a whole house. You could have house. Goodbye, beach house.
So we want you guys to do a little activity, kind of see how this all works. So we're going to use the actual little FICO link here. And I'm also going to post a link in the chat right now. We're going to have you do an activity right now. We're going to have you go and look up a house in Wake Forest. So you can use the Zillow link, try to find a house between 250,000 and 600,000, and look up. Now you're all going to be doing it based on your credit score, which the way we've assigned it is, if your first name begins with A through H, your credit score is going to be 630. If it's I through O, your credit score is 780. And if it's P through Z, it's 685. What we want you to do right now is we want you to look this up, and then we're going to call on some of you guys to share what you found. So we'll give you about a few minutes to do that right now. I'll copy this link real quickly. If you're having trouble with doing this, just send us a chat. I was to open this up. These are the houses that are available in Wake Forest right now. So you can find anywhere between 250 and 600,000. So you can find the house, you can choose one of these, and you're going to go to the actual FICO, and you'll choose the 30-year loans. You need to choose 30-year fixed. And you want to put the amount of the house. And then for the credit score, based on your first name, you choose which range you're in. And you get to see the calculation. Anyone having any trouble at all doing this? No? Everyone good? Okay. Anyone not finished? Okay, a couple of you. Okay, gotcha. Those that are done with that, if you want to just keep, well, actually, we'll wait and we'll go through this first, and then we'll switch to the housing one. Excuse me, the car one. Yes, you can pick any house. Yep. What we'll do is while some of them are still calculating, Erica, do you want to call on a few, see if they want to share maybe what they found?
Yeah. So let's see. Aaron, finished?
Yeah. For the monthly cost, I got 1,923, and then for the total interest, I got 312,000 and $332.
What was your total loan amount?
Oh,
In the actual calculator where it says step 3 in the loan principal amount, what was that? How much did the house cost?
the house cost $379,000.
And what was your credit score?
630.
Okay. So yeah. There we go. So your credit score had been a 780. What was the difference that you would have had? Like, what was the difference in your monthly payment?
You see it on the screen?
Yeah, it was just a little bit higher, I guess.
Yeah, like $2 a month.
$200 higher, yeah.
Yeah. $78,000 more in interest.
A lot of money. Yeah. Anyone else want to
You
call?
had tried.
Who else wants here?
Want to pop in? Alpha. What did you find, Alpha?
I bought a house that cost 4,200, $4,021,900, and the interest was if you're paid 760 to 50, right?
Sorry. Actually, no, 630.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
So it said that I'll be paying around that my monthly payment.
Okay.
249,750.
A lot.
That'll be my interest payment, yes. Compared if I had a high credit, $213,055.
Okay. Very good. So you guys can see that high credit score really does help you. You want to do one more? Thank you, Alpha. Anyone else want to?
Who wants to volunteer?
Midori?
I'll volunteer.
Okay. Isaiah?
So my house is 400,000. The overall.
What's your credit score? What was the range for your credit score?
With I, so I think it was 780.
Okay.
So my total interest pay would be, wait, is it, so 780 to 850, right?
Yep.
So my total interest would be 950, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mean your total monthly payment?
Yeah, my total monthly payment would be $950.
What was the price of your house again?
400,000.
Okay. It's a little different. That's okay. It's about the same. Okay. And what is your total interest paid?
Where do I find that?
So do you see my screen right now?
No, it's actually.
No, it's just blank.
Oh, it's just blank. Sorry. Thought I was sharing this. You see this right here?
Yeah.
So wherever your column is right here, it would tell you your total interest based on your FICO score.
Okay.
What does that show for you?
200,374.
Okay, gotcha. So
yeah.
Do you want to share any more about the home one? Any other thoughts before we move on to the car one?
No, I think I'm good.
Thank you, Isaiah.
You're welcome.
You want to share any more, or you want to move on to the car one?
And we don't have to necessarily. I know we're kind of running short on time, but we had the same kind of activity for a car. It's the same link. You just would select a 60-month auto loan, and it'll give you kind of the same idea. So you can kind of play around with it and see just the difference of that the interest makes, and that interest rate is driven by good credit. So just lets you kind of understand the cost of bad credit.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Because we're kind of short on time. Is there any questions, any thoughts anyone has about what they learned today? You might want to share. I had a couple follow-up kind of questions, but I don't know if there's any specific questions anyone had. You can ask us in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask the question. So if you don't have any, here's the questions I asked. How will you use the knowledge from today's webinar? You guys want to put that in the chat, how you think you would use it? Want to type up a response? Second question. What is something else you would like to learn that relates to financial literacy? Good credit things here. I'm hoping to prepare for college, start a budget, be more careful credit, more into interest rates, starting a budget.
How does rental property work?
Yep. Yes.
You're shopping online. Is it better to use a credit or debit card? Here's the thing. Typically, a debit card is tied to your checking account. So if you're shopping online and your card gets compromised because of malware or because there's an issue with that particular online company, when you use a card, you're actually basically giving them access to your checking account where the majority of your money is. So I typically recommend credit cards. Some people even use these prepaid Visa cards, like they were talking about in the video, so that that's the only, they don't have access to anything. But I typically recommend a credit card. It's a lot easier to kind of issue a new one versus kind of tying up your checking account and potentially letting them get money from there. more information about college loans.
Yeah, college loans.
Money management.
The reason we're asking those questions, we're hoping to set up another webinar on financial literacy in a couple weeks, and our topic was going to be around budgeting. We thought about maybe adding in some additional topics based on your feedback today. So I think the college loan one's a very good one. Looking at that can tie in, can be kind of a transition from today, where we talk mainly about housing and cars, which for most of you, you will not make those purchases on your own for several years. But college loans is going to affect all of you very soon if it hasn't already. So I think those are good questions. Leases. Okay. Do you want to answer any of these questions today, Erica, or do you want to maybe see if you want to maybe add?
I mean, like leasing works. I mean, you're leasing a car. Is that what you're talking about, Alpha? Both property and okay. So, like for a car, a lot of times, especially with new cars, they'll let you do a lease as opposed to buying it. You're given X amount of mileage that you're allowed to use during the year, and typically the lease is going to be 2-3 years. At the end of that time, you have the option to buy the car back, and it becomes yours. So you could get a loan for it, or you could turn it in and get another car. It is not your car. You don't own it. You don't have the title. So that's kind of how it works. I am a person who typically drives my car for 10 years or longer. And so leasing doesn't make sense for me. But there are people who like to change cars out, and they're just car people. And it's still going to all report to your credit. But sometimes you can get a nicer car or a lower rate, I guess. As far as property goes, I mean, leasing property, as far as I guess a house or an apartment or whatever, that kind of varies. So there are individuals who own rentals, and so you could lease a house from me if I owned a house. And then there's apartment complexes, and those are owned by larger companies. And so a lot of times they're going to have probably a stricter procedure about how they look at credit or whatever. Whereas if you're leasing a house from me, I may not have access to some of that. I could probably do a background check on you, and that's about it. So that's kind of the difference. A apartment complex, for a bigger company, is typically going to have the ability. If you're leasing a car, it's going to show up on your credit. If you're leasing an apartment, it is not. The only time you're going to see that appear on your credit is if you choose to not pay and they have to evict you. And then they'll put a claim. There may be a claim on your credit that you had to go to court over it, or that they put. Anyway, they could basically deem your credit for that. However, you're not going to see like a mortgage would, kind of the repayment history of renting an apartment.
Because of time, I think these are good questions. I think what we'll do is we'll look at some of these. Maybe we can add them into our next presentation. But our thought process was to do a budgeting presentation next, and we could tie in some things about how to put together a good budget to prepare yourself for the future. Also, we could also maybe tie in something about college loans a little bit. Maybe give you some advice on that. I might even be able to bring in maybe a Miss Wendy Briley, who's done a presentation for us on many things. Maybe she could give us. She's a college counselor. She might be willing to give us some advice on that too. So I don't know, Erica, is that something of your expertise at all, or not really? Okay.
At all.
Okay, that's what I assumed not. So we could definitely maybe there's a way to bring some of that into the next presentation. I wanted to thank you, Erica. Thank you so much for presenting today. I know today's format, we kind of were trying to do lecture and interaction and videos and interaction. So this is the first time doing it this way. I know our last presentation was a little more, we did it it's just a video. It's a little bit easier, but I appreciate all of you guys being with us today. I really hope that you got something out of this. I think the biggest thing that I can share is that as you get older, this is going to be something you will have to deal with. And so understanding how it works and having that knowledge now will help you in your future. And Erica, I really, anything you want to share as your last kind of comments for the group?
I don't really have anything to share other than if you have questions, Corey will have my email address, so you are welcome to email me during this time. And thanks so much for everybody participating.
Thank you so much. I'll send that out to the group afterwards. I'll send the email out. But I hope for all of you learned something today, and we really appreciate all of you participating too. As I left the message last week about seeking knowledge during this time, I appreciate those who were there today, and hopefully we have webinars planned for the next several weeks. So I'll be sending you reminders about that. But again, thank you so much, Erica. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.